Today we're going to be showing you one of NVIDIA's best graphics cards of all time, the GTX 1070 with its 8 gigs of VRAM coming in at $85.
They come in on the used market around $85, but does that mean you should buy one for your next budget gaming PC? We're here to benchmark it and find out after a word from today's sponsor.
Today's video is brought to you by Microcenter, one of our favorite places to shop for tech. Microcenter always has top deals on PC hardware, and this September they're bumping it up a notch with their clearance savings event. You're able to get an additional 10% off open box yellow tag products, which can lead to some insane savings. And as always, you can shop Microcenter's top deals page to find some of our favorite bundles at a heavily discounted price, like this Intel Core i5-12600KF, MSI Z790, and 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM for just $260. Plus, Microcenter Miami is officially open. If you're in the Miami area, you should check out their newest location and make your trip. With over 25,000 items in stock and the best customer service around, don't miss out on the opportunity to discover tech heaven for yourself. And if you're on the West Coast and feeling a little bit jealous, Microcenter is opening another new store in Santa Clara. Sign up for early access and receive a free 128GB flash drive when the store opens. If you're interested in learning more, check out the links down below or head over to microcenter.com. Big thanks to Microcenter for sponsoring today's video. Now, let's get back to it.
So the GTX 1070 is a part of NVIDIA's 10 series, which came out quite some time ago. Really, when Matt and I were first starting to build PCs, we remember these cards coming out, and the 1070 is still very relevant because it performs kind of like a GTX 1660 Super-esque, except those cards are still over $100. So maybe saving yourself, $25-ish is actually worth it with this card.
So before we dive into our test bench here, which will be used to test the 1070, let's talk a little bit more about the GTX 1070 for those who maybe weren't around when this card came out or have never heard of it, and talk more about the key specs, and then we'll dive into what's in our test bench. The GTX 1070 was released on June 10th of 2016. It is based on the Pascal architecture. It is a PCI 3.0x16 card. On launch, it was $379. It is currently marked as end of life. It does come with 8GB of GDDR5 memory with a 256-bit memory bus, and all in all, this is a really solid graphics card. The specific model we have right here is a Aero ITX model, which is a single fan card. Believe it or not, there's not many of these, but this one was $85 and makes a lot of sense for a very compact build. And really, it compares again, as Jackson mentioned, to a 1660 Super with 2 more gigs of VRAM, and for $85, that might make a lot of sense. But we do have to test this graphics card first to see if it actually is worth it. We'll talk about the test bench real quick and then dive into those benchmarks.
To go over the specs of the test bench, we have the Ryzen 7 7700X that is an 8-core 16 thread with a large tower cooler cooling it. We also have 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM at 6000 MHz in dual channel. This test bench is packed with storage as well with a 4TB Lexar Gen 4 NVMe SSD. We have an Asus ROG Strix B650 Wi-Fi motherboard. We have a 1200 watt 80 plus gold fully modular power supply, all inside of a pretty high airflow full ATX case. Alright, so now that we talked about the GPU and the test bench, let's put them together and let's go benchmark.
Game time.
All right, guys, now that we have this $85 GTX 1070 on our test bench, let's run through some games and see how it performs. Now, the games we decided to test are as follows. We have Cyberpunk, Black Myth Wukong, Spider-Man Miles Morales, The Finals, Fortnite, and Warzone all ran at 1080p. I did run a mixture of these games with FSR on and FSR off, giving it a good idea of what this technology can do for older graphics cards and also what the maximum theoretical potential is of these graphics cards by not using this upscaling technology. First up in Cyberpunk at 1080p high settings with no FSR, we actually got an average of 63 FPS, a minimum of 52, and a max of 78. For a graphics card that can play 1080p high 60 FPS for $85, 1070 is looking pretty good so far. Now, the model we do have here is a single fan model, and the temperatures are okay, about 75 degrees Celsius, but a 2-fan or 3-fan model will definitely run better. It just depends if you get this graphics card at the $85 price point or spend a little bit more. The maximum I would spend on 1070 realistically is about $100, especially with the 1080 so close, but so far, good start for the performance. Now let's dive into the Black Myth Wukong benchmark 1080p medium settings. This time we used FSR and FrameGen on medium settings overall, and we got an average of 76 FPS, a max of 86, and a minimum of 36. Overall, very good performance. You are going to get a bit more stutters with an older GPU like this, but we still maintain 60 plus FPS using FrameGen. You can turn FrameGen off if you want to improve your latency and timings and get about 60 FPS on average on medium settings, but it's cool to see 1070. The 8 gigs of VRAM is keeping this card very relevant in 2024, and it can play games like this at 1080p no problem. Now let's dive into another demanding game, Spider-Man Miles Morales, 1080p medium settings with no FSR once again, got an average of about 60 FPS. This is a good moment for me to talk about what I would pair with the GTX 1070 in terms of the CPU. If we're looking on the used market, maybe even AliExpress, picking up like a Ryzen 5 3600 or a Ryzen 5 3500, those things go for like $30 to $40 on AliExpress right now. Really good price performance. That'd be a good starting point. And if you want to see that build on the channel, let me know in the comments down below. Or if you're wanting to go new right now, you can even build something with the Ryzen 5 5500 or Intel side. Maybe the i3 12100 would be a good option. 4-core 8-thread would probably be the minimum I would go with this graphics card. And you can easily build a PC for around $300 to $350 that can still play 1080p high settings in most games. Now let's dive into some first-person shooters. We got the Finals, 1080p medium settings, no upscaling. We got 60 to 70 FPS. This is a game that is very demanding on the CPU and GPU. So again, using our test system with the Ryzen 7 7700X, we're getting a little bit of an edge here, but I would imagine even with like an i3 10100 or an i3 12100, that would be more ideal with Gen 4 support and all, you would easily get 60 FPS on lower details in a game like this. The beauty of this card as well is it does come with that NVENC encoder, while be it is an older version of NVENC, it is still good for entry-level live streaming. I wouldn't live stream the high-end games that we're testing in this video, but if you focus on games like Fortnite, Minecraft, CS, Valorant, games like that, the 1070 still have no problem getting you into some live streaming, and if you're paying $85 for the graphics card, I think that's a really good value proposition. And of course, we gotta test Fortnite, 1080p DX12 on performance settings, far view distance and low textures. Big disclaimer here once again, guys, Fortnite is a very CPU dependent game, so our 7700X is helping us out a ton here, but we do like to run this benchmark on the DX12 mode, so you can see the GPU usage at around 98%. It is still being utilized, and you can still get 100 plus FPS in Fortnite. Depending on the CPU you pair with it, you will get different results, but I would imagine even with an i3 12100 on these settings, 80 to 90 FPS will be more than doable with that combination. And lastly, the game we decided to test was Warzone, 1080p balanced settings with no FSR. Once again, 60 to 70 FPS. Was actually having a really good experience in Warzone, but there were some dips into the 50s and high 40s, around 48 to 49 FPS. I think FSR will definitely benefit you here, but you will have more latency. So Warzone's one of those games where it's kind of iffy if it is a good idea, but you could go down to basic settings as well and maybe get a 60 FPS locked experience. That's kind of all I really expect out of the 1070 nowadays. But all in all, incredibly impressed with the GTX 1070. The 1080 we just benchmarked recently performed very well at $120 and saving even more money and going down to $80 to $85. If you can find these regularly for $80 to $85, you're getting some good price to performance. Now, one thing to consider is this series of GPU is getting quite old. Nowadays, driver support may be limited. You might only get another couple years of driver support out of this thing. So maybe consider something like a slightly newer NVIDIA card like the 1660 Super, which does perform very equal to the 1070, albeit with 2 less gigs of VRAM, or compared to something like a 3050 on the used market, which again, similar graphics card here, but with the RTX side of things. You might want to consider newer cards if you want to have more longevity, but if you're building a really cheap budget PC, don't really care about long-term driver support, picking one of these up for $80 to $85 is really good bang for buck. So you should definitely check the link in the description down below. Will be an affiliate link and it will help us out to buy a 1070 from eBay today. And yeah, let me know what you think of the 1070 down below. But now we finished the benchmarking section of today's video. Let's bring Jackson back in here and wrap this video up real quick.
So as you guys can see, GTX 1070 is still very relevant. You can still get your NVIDIA drivers for it. So for now, this card I would say is here to stay, especially at the $85 price point. It'll be really cool to see this card get even cheaper, of course, but hopefully they don't end the actual driver support anytime soon.
Hopefully we do get a couple more years out of this graphics card at $85. Even if you just get 2 years of driver support, I think it's still more than worth it. But if you do want some more longevity, jumping up to a slightly newer version like the 1660 Super or even like a 3050 will ensure you more longevity, but obviously you're not paying $85 for those cards. So if you want to buy one of these graphics cards yourself, check the links in the description down below. They will be affiliate links. They will help us out. Let us know what kind of PC build you want to see here on the channel with this graphics card and what CPU would you pair with it? Let us know in the comments down below.
And as always, we hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, check out our other 2 YouTube channels and also our twitch.tv/toastybros, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.
This GPU will be for sale in a PCBros.tech gaming PC, and it'll come with a pretty decent warranty.
PCBros.tech, we sell awesome gaming PCs we feature here on the channel and one-off customs you can buy today. Use code ToastyBros on checkout to save 3% on your next purchase. I'm losing my voice, but I'm powering through. See you guys later. Goodbye.